Wednesday, first hour. That means it's middays with Mark, Congressman Mark Pocan, co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, brilliantly representing the state of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives, is on the line with us. His website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, R-E-P, as in representative, Rep Mark Pocan, M-A-R-K-P-O-C-A-N. Congressman, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
And for our listeners, Congressman Pocan is with us for the hour, and he's taking your calls, 202-808-9925. Congressman, I understand, I've been watching this kind of Fox News right-wing hate radio bubble getting ready to explode because a group of Republican congressmen or their staffers have written a secret memo. It's like, I've got a secret memo here. Anyway, you are taking this on head on. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I went, since we had the shutdown, I went down and read the, top secret memo that's going to blow a hole into, what the FBI corruption is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, I can't tell you specifics of the memo. It's a 4-page memo. But, I left there, and it is remarkable the amount of hype they're giving to something that has such little content. It's like if you went to, Christmas to buy something at Best Buy and you left with a Betamax player, right? It doesn't have a whole lot of use, but they're trying to put some subterfuge out there to, again, take away from the Russia investigation that gets closer and closer to the president directly, and they're trying to put misinformation out. And, to tell you how bad this is, Tom, if I can just add two things. One, they won't share the memo with the FBI or the Department of Justice. Again, ridiculous, a classified memo. And two, they are really putting this out there as if, there is something to all of this. And, I fully support releasing the memo, because I think if everyone sees what's in this memo and the evidence that brought them to whatever crazy conclusions they came up with, you will see how pathetic this call is, that there's some kind of smoking gun. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors and everything else that they're putting out there right now to try to, again, create some subterfuge around Russia. But it is amazing. And the Russian bots on Twitter, et cetera, ran with this weekend. So they've got a lot of help from the people who helped bring the election to them.
It's pretty amazing.
Let's expose it. Let's expose it, and let's expose whatever evidence they collected to get there.
Yeah, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Amen.
Absolutely.
I'm curious your thoughts on the shutdown, how it was played, and how Senator Schumer has changed his position now on being willing to swap $18 billion of funding for DACA, for a border wall and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think Senator Schumer was in a tough place to begin with, right? You've got the House of Representatives that's incapable of passing a real budget bill because of the Tea Party, 30 or 40 people. If they don't vote for it, you have to have Democratic votes. But if they go and get Democratic votes, the Tea Party threatens to throw out whoever's in leadership. So you've got a House that is not actually a real player in this. And then you've got a president who, every time they've had an agreement over the last several months on virtually any issue, the agreement blows up. Most recently, in the last week, they would have an agreement with the president, and then all of a sudden, Kelly or someone else would come from the staff and say, well, what the president really meant was, and then you lose the deal that you just cut. You can't do that. If you have negotiations, you have to stick by the agreement. So given that you've got a House partner that's, completely unable to do anything. You've got a White House that you can't trust when you have a deal. They won't take yes for an answer. He was in a tough spot. And I think the fact that we got the CHIP funding, which was important, that we have, I think, what they feel is a much stronger position on DACA, including now infamous talking sticks that Susan Collins and others passed around, that may have been what I think Chuck Schumer thought the best he could get out of having such problematic partners. Now, I and many others didn't vote for it. I am somewhat of a hardliner when it comes to the DACA issue. This is something the president broke. We shouldn't trade for something that everyone says we want to fix and we agree there isn't a problem. But honestly, most of the debate that we've been having as Democrats around the continuing resolution and on funding in general is that there's an agreement we've had in place for several budgets between Paul Ryan and Patty Murray that there was parity in funding for non-defense and defense. So they can't just come and, like they would like to do, fund defense through September 30th, and then whatever crumbs are left over go to things like Head Start and Meals and Wheels and education and health care. And that's what we've been fighting for. Paul Ryan won't live up to his previous agreement because of his caucus, and because of that, that's really what we're fighting for, is to make sure that we don't have devastating cuts to programs that actually help people. And unfortunately, that kind of got lost in the media debate. You know, you had the Republicans very disingenuously saying that we wanted to let illegals into the country and we didn't want to fund the military, and yet, you know, you saw we had resolutions that said fund the military if we're in a shutdown, and they won't even take them up. So, you know, it's hard because I think Chuck Schumer was dealt a 2, a 4, a 5, a 9 of clubs, and then he had 1 jack, and we're expecting him to come up with a good hand. You know, I wish things would have turned out differently, but I know he was in a tough place to begin with.
Yeah, well said. Those are my questions. Anything you wanted to announce, or should we pick up calls?
I think we can take in calls. I just think, you know, really this FBI MO, we're going to put some information on in a bit. We're fully for releasing this, because I think when people see this, you know, Devin Nunes has no credibility, right? He is removed from the investigation because, remember, all the antics he did one night. Mm-hmm. He also jumped out of a car and his staff didn't know where he went. And then the next day he's like, aha, I have this memo I have to give the White House that he picked up at the White House the day before. I mean, this guy has, you know, makes clowns look serious. And now he's the guy who's behind all of this. And they're saying release it, and they can release it. The president's even saying the committee can release it. And so they're trying to build this hype to something that when you get it, you're going to go home and go, I don't have any Betamax tapes. What do I do? Right. So I just think, you know, we really have to make sure people understand what this hype is.
Yeah, there's no there. Thank you for that. David in Greenfield, California. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, Congressman Pocan, and Happy New Year.
Thank you,
I wanted to talk about the DACA bill coming up by the Democratic senators in early February. I think that they should play some three-dimensional chess and add border funding to the bill so they can make it a must-pass thing for Republicans, and they would look bad voting against it. I think it would also have an added benefit of helping Democratic senators in these Republican states get reelected in this upcoming election in November.
Yeah, I mean, David, what you're saying is basically what's been happening, right? We had several months ago the agreement that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer had with the president that he blew up was not the wall at all, but some additional roads along the border, some use of drones for protecting where you don't have, you know, the ability to see what's happening at the border. But in exchange, you know, he broke something that wasn't, you know, needing to have any changes. DACA has worked well, although arguably we should have actually real pathways to citizenship for people. But in the meantime, it's worked well, and he changed it. So they had agreements on those things, and then the president went back once he had a rally and, you know, got together with all the Trumpites who, you know, want to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. And then Chuck Schumer, I think, tried to strategically do what you said. He said, okay, fine, let's put the wall on the table. Let's talk about it. And then still the president wouldn't take yes for an answer because they're not serious about fixing this. I think my personal opinion, what happened was they know how badly they're doing. That Wisconsin election was, you know, just like what we've seen across the country where we've got these huge turnouts of Dems and not Republicans. And at the end of the day, I think this was a Hail Mary for them to try to change their polling.
Very interesting. Congressman Mark Pocan is with us. It's Middays with Mark on the Thom Hartmann Program, taking your calls right after this. Congressman Pocan's website is pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at @RepMarkPocan. And be sure to say thanks for being on the program today. We'll be right back.